Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first Cabinet meeting of a new term of office for Rushcliffe Borough Council. I'm pleased to say, to remind everybody, that the Cabinet meeting is live streamed on YouTube, and a recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, under the Local Authorities Act regulations of 2012, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting, but the use of any such images or sound recordings are not under the Council's control. So before we start the meeting actually proper, I'm sure everybody is aware of the devastating and horrendous events that have taken place in the city of Nottingham today, or earlier today, and it's only just literally over the border of the river from us. So I'm sure that everybody joins in sending condolences and thoughts to everybody that's been involved, specifically the 3 people that died, as well as the other people that are in hospital and still recovering. So I think just a moment of thoughts, just to recognise and really think about those horrendous events that have been happening today. Thank you very much. So on to the agenda proper. Item 1 is apologies for absence. As far as I can see, there aren't any. So item 2, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? None. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of March. For those that were present at the meeting, would somebody like to propose that they're approved? Seconded. Thank you. All in favour of those who are present? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you. So we're now on to item 4, which is the citizens' questions. And the first question is from resident John Greenwood, who's not actually attending this evening. So I will read out the question in his absence, and Councillor Verdi will respond to it. So the question is, having read the minutes from April, it is unclear how much of the council budget goes towards the cost of energy. Please can you confirm the annual total of the budget that is spent on electricity and gas, what the total was 3 years previously, and what steps have been taken to reduce future consumption? Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chairman. The 23-24 budget for gas is £132,500. This was 34,900 in preceding year 2021. In 2021, and electricity is 475,700 and was 98,500 in 2021. There are a number of reasons for these rises, not least the significant rise due to the newly opened crematorium, which has just come online. The council does have a carbon reduction plan and is actively using alternative energy sources such as solar panels on our buildings, heat pumps at its leisure centres, and also our own estate, the use of electrical charging points for vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That response will appear in the minutes, and perhaps the questioner is watching it on YouTube as well. So the second question is from Councillor Birch. Councillor Birch, would you like to go to the table? And if I invite you to ask, as the right-hand one. The right-hand one. Yeah, it's right. That's all right.
Is that
Right. Okay. So if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you. And before I do, I'd just also like to offer my thoughts and prayers and that of Councillor Chewings to the victims of the atrocity today. My question is, Bingham, Eastleigh, Fareham, Radcliffe-on-Trent and West Bridgford all have huge potential for improvement. Does the Cabinet believe that the growth boards are achieving enough positive outcomes for residents?
Thank you. And Councillor Abby Brennan is the portfolio or growth boards come under her portfolio. So I'll ask Councillor Brennan to respond.
Thank you. As the report outlines, the report that's later on the agenda this evening, the growth boards started meeting first in 2015 and they've been reviewed twice since then. However, with the impacts of COVID, current cost of living pressures and so on, we think it's timely to review those boards and make sure they're still fit for purpose. Our intention was always that those boards should be focused on actions and not just meet without a clear role for themselves and clear delivery plan. And as the report sets out, we consider they have achieved a lot in the time that they've been around, and they are listed in the paper, but I'll cover them briefly now. The brilliant Bingham Master Plan, the Radcliffe-on-Trent Economic Master Plan, retail reviews in all the growth board areas to inform our action plans and the areas of focus, engagement of Severn Trent Water in Eastleigh, the West Bridgford Commissioners Report and Supporting Action Plan and the website West Bridgford Way, Shopfront Improvement Grant that supported approximately 30 high street businesses to improve their frontages and how they face their customers, the High Street Digital Grant, Public Realm and grounds improvements in Radcliffe-on-Trent, and the appointment of a town centre manager to deliver events. There's some of the key outputs of those growth boards. Subject to Cabinet approval this evening, the plan is to engage with those who've been involved in the growth boards to get their views on the effectiveness of them and ideas for their future work plans. We're also happy to engage with other relevant stakeholders, including ward councillors, who may not have been involved in some cases in the past. The intention is to take a report to Growth and Development Scrutiny Group in October, so members have the opportunity to consider some of those options. You state that Bingham, Eastleigh, Fareham, Radcliffe-on-Trent and West Bridgford have huge potential for improvement, although you didn't clarify in what area you're specifically talking about, so I haven't been able to address that directly. However, the growth boards we need to ensure that they remain effective, and of course some of them may have run their course and others we may need to have new ones in new areas. So it's important now that we look at the arrangements across the piece to make sure they do continue to deliver positive outcomes for residents.
Thank you. I get a supplementary question, don't I?
Right, thank you for that. Do you have a supplementary
I
question?
do. Sorry, Councillor, I wasn't familiar with the procedures. It's my first time. May I ask the question now? Thank you. So you said the growth boards are concentrated on actions, and you've listed some of them there. In my view, I don't think the outcomes have been particularly fantastic. If we take Bingham as an example, the Bingham Master Plan was commissioned in 2018. I'm quoting now, it identified poor provision for car parking, which leads to car-lined residential streets, is the most prevalent recurring topic in our public consultation. That is still the case today. The parking in Bingham, where I live, is utterly disgraceful, and it's stopping people, particularly elderly people.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, this is just a preface to the question.
No,
Do I need to get right to the...
Do you have a
I
question?
beg your pardon. Do you think it's acceptable that Bingham's residents still don't have adequate parking provision, considering that it was identified as the primary problem in Bingham in the 2018 Bingham Master Plan?
Thank you. Yeah, there are a huge number of factors as to why the parking problem has not been resolved in Bingham. And the growth board is only one player in a very complex set of relationships to deliver that output. It's absolutely essential that that does get delivered in Bingham, and it's important that all those partners that can play their role and have an influence on delivering car parking in Bingham do come to the table and play their full role in that. And so we hope, as part of the new action plan going forward, that will actually get delivered by all those partners that have responsibility to ensure it is.
Okay, lovely.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thanks. If you could just press the right on button again, could you please? Thank you very much. Lovely. Thank you. Right. If we now move on to there are no key decisions, so the non-key decisions, and item excuse me, item 6 is the process for developing the corporate strategy for 23-27. I'll mention just now in the recommendations, recommendation A, it shouldn't say 2019 to 23, it should say 2023 to 27. So with that change to that recommendation, so I'm moving the recommendations. This is basically if you like, the start of the process. And so this gets us into a full discussion. There'll be consultation and discussions going forward. But I think recommendation B, recognising performance against the corporate strategy, I did just want to quickly highlight there are 4 big projects of the council. The Chapel Lane site, which has been delivered in Bingham, which involves the leisure centre and the very successful business centre, which has nearly been fully occupied now. So that's proved very successful. The opening of the crematorium, which has been mentioned very briefly. And I think the council can be very pleased with the way in which the council conducted itself in supporting and helping the recovery from COVID. And I think the 4th one was the relocation of Streetwise, which again has proved very successful in the efficiency of delivering the service. Obviously, there are lots of other achievements within the strategy, but those are 4 big ones, I think. So the first item A is just endorsing the approach to draw up the strategy for this forthcoming term. B, I've just mentioned, and then C, again, that's important that scrutiny is also involved in having an input into the corporate strategy. I'm a great believer in scrutiny having a policy development element, so that hopefully there can be a lot of agreement there as the issues are actually discussed and the final corporate strategy drawn up. So there, the corporate overview group will have the opportunity to review the draft before it comes back to final approval by Cabinet. So I'm moving that. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, can you turn? Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I welcome this paper. I welcome the process it outlines, and I'd particularly like people to concentrate to paragraph 4.5, which sets out all the ways in which we're going to engage with our stakeholders, customers, clients and partners to create an inclusive strategic plan going forward. I think it's really useful that we are looking at a variety of different media to make sure we can hit everybody, as it were. Social media, in-person, paper versions, e-versions, and it's really useful to have the COG group overview that as well. So we'll have input from all our stakeholders as well as from our scrutiny committees and from member councillors. So I very much welcome this, and I'm happy to second the recommendations at paragraph 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from anybody? No. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you. So moving on to item 7, which relates to the growth boards, which was the subject of the question earlier on. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, as I already said in response to the question earlier from Councillor Birch, the growth boards were first established in 2015, following a report to Cabinet in December 2014, and they were reviewed in September 2017 and again in July 2019. So it's now 8 years since the boards were established and 4 years since the last review. So it's timely that we do review them again and make sure they are still fit for purpose and delivering for Rushcliffe residents and businesses. The report this evening, sets out the proposed process for that review, providing some background information, including the original objectives and the work done to date by the growth boards, the wider context and the proposed next steps, some of which I already covered in my previous answer. We know that COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact, accelerating changes on our high street, impacts on local businesses and residents. And we also know that the impact of housing growth is being felt keenly in many of our towns and villages. So it's absolutely right that we look at the existing structure of the boards, their makeup, who attends them, their objectives to ensure they're fit for purpose and are going to deliver going forward. The background to the setting up of the boards is set out in paragraphs 4.1 onwards, and they've remained unchanged since 2019 when Fareham was included. So we have a strategic growth board that oversees all the work: Bingham, Eastleigh, Fareham, Radcliffe-on-Trent and West Bridgford. The remit of each of those groups changes slightly. The focus is different depending on the identified priorities for that area. Their overarching priority is that they have to proactively plan and manage growth in the areas to ensure that the opportunities are maximised and to look at the impacts on local infrastructure. The Fareham Growth Board is a slight exception. It's slightly different to the others as it's got a very clear focus, specifically on the new housing and employment development on the A453. The boards were intended to be action focused, as we've discussed. Paragraph 4.15 sets out some of their key achievements. I won't go over those again. Membership of the local boards is largely similar, with representation from a cabinet portfolio holder as chair, Nottinghamshire County Council, ward members, parish town councillors and clerks, and local business representatives. Some also have additional members from education, health and local developers, depending on the focus of the board. Over time, that membership has changed, and some no longer include local ward members. And in most cases, business representation has been quite difficult to secure. And I think that's a really important element of the review going forward, to understand why that's the case and what can be done to address that, where there is a need for businesses to engage with the group. Paragraph 4.16 sets out the context for the growth boards going forward, including UK SPF funds and developments at the airport, and the creation of some new community groups, such as at Newton. Paragraph 420 onwards describes how these might shape the future role and makeup of the boards. A large number of stakeholders have been involved in the growth boards over the last 8 years, and it's important that those views are collated and reflected in any review. And subject to Cabinet's approval of this evening, it's been a long day. Options for the future of growth boards will be prepared for consideration by the Growth and Development Scrutiny Board before coming back to Cabinet later in the year. So, taking that into account, I'd like to move that the recommendation set out at paragraph 2, namely that Cabinet endorses the work of the growth boards to date, supports the proposal to take a report to Growth and Development Scrutiny Group to review options and identify new approaches, agrees that a further report be brought to Cabinet in November 2023 detailing the outcome of the review and the scrutiny group discussions. And my apologies, I think I said October when Councillor Birch asked me the question, but it's November 2023 that it'll come back to the Cabinet. So I commend those recommendations to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Upton.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't repeat what Councillor Brennan's already said, but suffice it to say, I did chair the West Bridgford Growth Board for quite some considerable time, and I'm a member of the Radcliffe-on-Trent Growth Board. And in my opinion, they've achieved a lot of good work in partnership with other organisations and individuals. And for that reason, I do support them. However, I think we would all agree there's been a lot of change, and there continues to be a lot of change around us. And I think now is the time to do a check, really, to see that, as has been said, that they're fit for purpose and they're in the right areas and they're looking at the right aspects within this borough of Rushcliffe. So I'm happy to second the report, Tim.
Yes, I think you're quite right, and it's just a question of checking, if you like, that they've all got the right focus on the particular areas and issues that they pertain to. So it is important that we do make sure that we keep things that, as you say, are fit for purpose. Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And just once again to really follow on from Councillor Upton, I've been on West Bridgford Growth Board for a number of years as well, and actually I think you can see the impact they've had, and across their areas of the borough. I mean, you look at West Bridgford, at Central Avenue now and Gordon Road, the amount of new businesses that are opening up, and plans open from small business through to large chains. And, I've been in places like Radcliffe-on-Trent, Wellington, Bingham recently. Again, they're all thriving, and I think actually you go across other areas of the county and city, they're not, and so they really should be commended for what they've done. But you're quite right, where this review isn't new. We've done a review a number of times since it's been set up. But what we're doing here in terms of asking scrutiny to really review it shows that we are committed to them. We really welcome the opinions of the wider membership of the council. And I think it would be a good thing to make sure these boards fit for purpose, because as Councillor Brennan has already outlined, we don't want to do a board just for board's sake to tick a box and look how great we are. They actually have to have a purpose. And so by reviewing them and make sure they're up to date, I think it shows our intention to keep supporting the business throughout the borough, also to look at our strategic sites and make sure they have the maximum impact for our residents. Thank you.
Yeah, when they were first set up, the idea was that they would be, if you like, streamlined so that they are there to get things done rather than just talk about things. Anybody, any other questions, comments? No? Right, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. And finally, item 8, relating to the LGA Debate Not Hate campaign. Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So I'm asking that we tonight recommend to full council that Rushcliffe Borough Council endorses and supports the LGA Debate Not Hate campaign and signs the online public statement to reflect this support. As highlighted in the report in front of you, the purpose of the campaign is not only to highlight the issue of abuse being directed towards councillors, but to propose measures to help combat the abuse and to put in place more support for councillors. From reading through the campaigners' recommendations, I believe going to be a benefit to our councillors, and just importantly, future candidates who may be put off standing as councillor at all levels if they see abuse of councillors taking place without consequence. I may draw Cabinet's attention to point 4.4 on the report. I know the hard work that council officers do to support councillors, and I, for one, am very appreciative of this. Should full council agree with our recommendation, of course, it's right we review what we are doing and if extra measures are needed. Chairman, I think the report is quite self-explanatory, so I therefore formally propose the recommendation set out under point 2 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor English, seconded.
Thanks, Chairman. Well, I'm pleased that this widespread problem has been researched and is now being challenged by the LGA with this campaign statement aimed at protecting all councillors from unacceptable behaviours. Extremes of hate are widespread, from the murder of MPs down to snide comments and personal attacks, especially on social media platforms. How often do we read positive news turned around by hateful chains of abuse and unfounded comments? The suggestion of single points of contact or safety liaison officers is worthy of further investigation. I'm confident that we have already in place locally excellent police support should it be necessary. We are fortunate that in Rushcliffe, our concerns are to the lower end of the scale and can be supported by officers, but that should not instill any complacency whatsoever. We should be embracing respect to each other as representatives of our various communities. So yes, where do we sign? This is an appropriate statement to agree. As a further objective, I would implore social media site providers to follow suit. So I'm happy to endorse and second the proposal on item 9.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Up.
Well, just a brief comment, really. In my lifetime, I've experienced greater abuse, if you like, and actions by various people in society. And I think, you know, it's great to have different opinions, and rightly so, and have a democracy where you can express them. But I think there comes a point where, you know, you should be polite and make your points without getting into a strident and abusive type of commentary. And it seems to me that this should try and help keep things on more of a level basis and not get too violently abusive, either in writing or in verbal responses to people. And it's just an observation I've had over the 70 odd years I've been on this planet, that things are getting worse, in my opinion, not better. And I think that's a shame. We should be able to speak what we feel, and we can have different opinions, but there's a way to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Any other questions or comments? No. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. That comes to the end of the agenda. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for the observers' attendance as well, and questioner.